What happens when two of television's most beloved comedians turn a late-night stage into a battlefield? The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was supposed to be just another lighthearted sit-down. Instead, what unfolded that night left audiences stunned, a clash that blurred the line between comedy and confrontation. Trevor Noah entered the stage with his trademark grin, waving to thunderous applause. Colbert rose from behind his desk, extending a hand. The exchange looked warm enough, but sharp-eyed viewers might have noticed the flicker of tension in Colbert's face. Colbert, to the crowd, Trevor Noah, everybody. The audience roared, Colbert. Turning back, smiling tight, "Thanks for being here, Trevor. Always good to have you back." Trevor settling into the chair. "Thanks, Stephen. Though I'll admit, after some of the things you've said lately, I wasn't sure the invite still stood." Laughter rippled through the studio, but Colbert's smile faltered. Just for a beat, Colbert. "Oh, you mean my comments about comedy? Accountability." "Yeah, I think that's a conversation worth having." Trevor leaning back, eyebrows raised. "Accountability. Interesting word choice. Tell me, Stephen, accountable for what, exactly?" Colbert tone sharpening. "When you've got a platform as big as yours was, you have a responsibility." Some voices got amplified, others minimized. The crowd quieted. This was no longer banter. Trevor, leaning forward, voice edged. "Stephen, are you seriously going to lecture me about responsibility? You built your career mocking conservatives in character, and you're questioning my platform?" Colbert snapping back, "That was satire, with purpose. What I'm talking about is when comedy avoids confronting the hardest truths." Trevor, in disbelief, avoiding. "Did you miss the 7 years I spent breaking down voter suppression, police brutality, immigration reform? Night after night. And you think I was avoiding?" The studio froze. This was no longer comedy, it was raw, unscripted conflict. Colbert, leaning forward, voice rising. "I'm not questioning the topics, Trevor. I'm questioning the approach. There's a difference between informing and performing." Trevor standing, hands gesturing, performing. "Stephen, this is television. Everyone here is performing you, me, even your audience. But don't you dare suggest I didn't care about those issues." Colbert, jaw tight, still seated. "Commitment means more than caring. It means making people uncomfortable when it matters most. It's not always chasing the laugh." Trevor voice breaking with fury. "You think I was chasing laughs while families were being torn apart? You think I didn't carry that weight home with me every night?" Silence. The audience didn't know whether to clap, gasp, or stay frozen. Colbert, slowly, deliberately. "At the end of the day, Trevor, you had to choose. Be beloved or be necessary. And I think you chose beloved." Trevor's eyes flashed. He leaned across the desk. "Trevor low, dangerous, and what did you choose, Stephen?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you've managed to be both. Conveniently." Colbert finally. Standing, matching Trevor's energy. "I chose to challenge power structures, not just comment on them. I chose to make people think, even when they didn't want to." Trevor, laughing bitterly. "Challenge power. When was the last time you left this studio? When was the last time you sat in the communities you claimed to care about? You shake politicians' hands, smile for the camera, then call that challenging power." Colbert voice tight, defensive. "That's not fair." Trevor cutting him off, voice rising. "Fair? You sit in one of the cushiest chairs in media, in front of one of the safest audiences in America, and you get to play moral authority. Meanwhile, you judge me for walking away when I needed to grow beyond a desk." The tension was unbearable. Audience members were frozen. Some filming on their phones, Colbert voice cold. "At least I'm consistent. At least I didn't build credibility with a community just to abandon it when the pressure mounted." Trevor's face went still. His reply was barely above a whisper. "Trevor, you have no idea what you're talking about." Colbert, pressing voice, sharp, "Don't I? You had the platform, the audience, the influence, and when the country needed your voice most, you left." Trevor slammed both hands on the desk, leaning in until their faces were inches apart. "Trevor, I didn't leave the fight. Stephen, I left the bubble. There's a difference." The studio was silent. Two comedians, two titans locked in a confrontation nobody could have scripted, each unwilling to back down. Both sides. Trevor's eyebrows shot up, his voice edged with disbelief. "There it is, the false equivalency that makes everyone feel comfortable. Stephen, there's a reason your show became appointment television for one very specific type of person. And it's not because you were challenging anyone's worldview." The tension was electric now. Stagehands froze where they stood. The band sat stiff behind their instruments. Even the cameramen held their breath. Terrified of missing the moment this powder keg finally blew. "At least I stayed in the fight." Colbert shot back, his voice tight with anger. "At least I didn't give up my platform when people needed me most." "Give up?" Trevor's voice cracked, raw. "Stephen, I didn't give up anything. I chose to use my voice in a different way. But in your world, the only way to matter is to do exactly what you're doing." Colbert leaned forward, pressing the attack. The Daily Show wasn't just any platform, it was a launchpad for real change. Jon Stewart used it to hold politicians accountable, to expose corruption, to move the needle. "And you turned it into what?" Trevor demanded, his voice thunderous. "Say it. Say what you've been thinking this whole time." Colbert hesitated, then plunged. "You turned it into a variety show. You made it safe, comfortable. You took something that was supposed to challenge people. You neutered it." The words landed like a slap. Trevor's face flickered through shock, hurt, then rage. "Neutered it." His voice was barely contained. Fury. "Stephen, I took that show places John never did. I put stories on that stage that had never been told. I gave perspectives that had never been heard. And you call that neutered?" Colbert's reply cut clean. "But did it change anything? Did any of it actually matter? Or was it just performance?" Trevor recoiled as if struck. "Did it matter?" His voice rose, incredulous. "Every day. Young people told me the show helped them understand politics for the first time. Parents thanked me for giving them language to talk about injustice with their kids. Teachers used our clips in classrooms. And you sit there asking me if it mattered." Colbert's tone dropped cold. "And yet, here we are. Same divisions. Same leaders failing. Same broken systems. What did all that understanding actually accomplish?" Silence. Trevor's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on Colbert's. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, steadier, but more dangerous. "You're right about one thing, Stephen. Here we are. Same problems, same divisions. But maybe that's because people like you have convinced yourselves that talking about problems is the same as solving them. Maybe you've built an industry on making people feel informed without ever inspiring them to act." Colbert's retort was sharp. "That's rich, coming from someone who literally walked away." "I didn't walk away," Trevor snapped. His voice climbed again, full of fire. "I refuse to keep having the conversation on your terms. I refuse to pretend that making jokes about politicians was activism, because it's not." The audience sat frozen. This wasn't entertainment. Anymore, it was two men ripping open the very purpose of their profession. Real activism. Colbert scoffed. "What do you think this is? We inform. We break down complex issues. We hold the powerful accountable." Trevor's laugh was jagged, bitter. "You don't get to use that word. You just spent 10 minutes telling me my work." was worthless. You don't get to turn around and claim solidarity now. I'm not claiming solidarity, Colbert snapped. I'm asking how someone with your talent, your influence, could just abandon the fight when the stakes were so high. The stakes are always high, Trevor fired back. Every day, for people who don't look like you or live like you. And maybe I realized I could do more by actually being in those communities instead of talking about them to an audience that already agrees with me. Colbert opened his mouth, but Trevor cut him off, standing, his presence towering over the desk. You want to know why I left? I left because I was done being a circus act. I was done making everything palatable for people who should have been uncomfortable. I was done choosing between being honest and being popular. Honest and popular. Colbert echoed, voice dripping disbelief. Trevor, you were one of the most beloved hosts in late night. How exactly were you forced to choose? Trevor's eyes burned. Because beloved and respected are not the same thing. People loved me because I made them feel good. I made injustice seem manageable. I gave them the illusion of engagement while letting them off the hook from doing anything real. Colbert slammed a hand on the desk, rising to meet him now. And what's wrong with meeting people where they are? With bringing them along? Trevor leaned in, voice like a blade. What's wrong is we stopped bringing them along, Stephen. We started letting them believe that watching us was enough. We weren't changing anything, we were making content. The studio lights felt harsher now, casting deep shadows across their faces. Content? Colbert spat. That's what you think this is? Trevor spread his arms wide. Look around. The set, the cameras, the audience. This is show business. It's always been show business. We just started believing our own press clippings. That's cynical, even for you, Colbert said, shaking his head. If that's what you believed, why stay for 7 years? Why not walk away sooner? For the first time, Trevor faltered. His voice dropped, softer, raw, because I thought I could change it from the inside. I thought I could elevate voices that weren't heard. I thought I could shine light on the ignored. And maybe I did, but not enough. But I also think I got caught up in the game, Trevor admitted. I started caring more about ratings than impact, more about viral moments than lasting change. I measured success by how many people laughed instead of how many people learned. The honesty in his voice caught Colbert off guard. His shoulders eased, his tone softening. Trevor, every one of us struggles with that, he said quietly. You think I don't wonder if I'm just preaching to the choir? You think I don't question whether all of this, he gestured around the studio, actually makes a difference? Then why attack me for asking the same questions? Trevor shot back. Why make me the villain for deciding maybe there was a better way to use my voice? Because you had something rare, Colbert said, frustration bleeding through. A global perspective no one else could offer. You could reach audiences the rest of us couldn't, and you walked away. I didn't walk away, Trevor. Said firmly, I redirected. I chose a different way to engage. By doing what? Colbert pressed. Documentaries no one watches. Speeches at conferences full of people who already agree with you. Books collecting dust on shelves. Trevor's jaw tightened. You really don't get it. You think the only impact that matters is being on TV every night. You think the only voice that counts is the one piped into living rooms. Because reach matters, Colbert countered. Scale matters. Millions of viewers every night. That's power. That's responsibility. And depth matters more than breadth. Trevor fired back. Changing one life completely is more valuable than nudging a million opinions. That's a luxury you can afford because people like me are still out here every night holding the line. Colbert snapped. Trevor's laugh was bitter. Holding the line. Between entertainment and journalism. Between comfort and challenge. That line disappeared a long time ago. The words hit Colbert like a blow. His face flushed, hands clenching on the desk. "You think this is comfortable?" he demanded, voice shaking. "Standing up here, taking on the most powerful people in the world, weathering threats and criticism." "Yes," Trevor said, relentless. "Because you already know what your audience wants to hear. Because you've built a brand on being the reasonable voice in an unreasonable world. Because every night you get to be the hero of your own story." "And what were you?" Colbert shot back. "The charming outsider who made Americans feel good about themselves. The friendly foreign critic who could say what no one else dared, but without making anyone feel guilty." The words landed like a punch. Trevor stepped back, breath caught in his throat. "That's what you think?" he asked quietly. Colbert didn't stop. He packaged criticism so it felt harmless. You were provocative without being threatening. And you made it look easy. Trevor's voice dropped to a raw whisper. "You think it was easy? Easy to be the outsider commenting on a country that wasn't mine. Easy knowing half the audience was waiting for me to slip up to prove I didn't belong." His voice grew stronger. "Every night I had to walk a tightrope. You never face critical, but not ungrateful. Insightful, but not presumptuous. Funny, but never disrespectful. And the worst part? Spent so much time proving I deserved that chair that I forgot to ask whether the chair was worth sitting in at all." Silence fell heavy. Even the hum of the lights seemed to vanish. For the first time, Colbert looked uncertain. "Trevor," he began softly. Didn't mean what?" Trevor cut in. "Didn't mean to question whether I belonged. Didn't mean to suggest my success was built on making people comfortable with their own prejudices." "That's not what I said," Colbert protested. But his voice lacked conviction. "It's exactly what you said," Trevor replied. His tone steadied, almost calm. "And maybe you're right. Maybe I was the acceptable face of criticism. Maybe I made it easy for people to feel progressive without changing anything." The admission hung in the air. The audience sat frozen. "But here's what you don't understand," Trevor continued, his voice hardening. "I was never the real trap. The real trap was believing that any of this," he gestured at the studio, "could ever be enough. Believing that 30 minutes of television could solve systemic problems." Colbert frowned, struggling. "So what? We should give up. None of this matters." "No," Trevor said, pacing now. "I'm saying maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking how television can change the world, maybe we should ask why we think television is the best tool to change it." "Because it reaches people," Colbert shot back. "Because it shapes opinion. Because it drives the conversation." "Does it?" Trevor challenged. "Or does it just echo conversations already happening? When was the last time your show actually changed someone's mind? When was the last time someone who disagreed with you walked away thinking differently?" Colbert faltered. "That's not the point. The point is to give engaged people tools to act." "And who are those people?" Trevor pressed. "'Cause I spent 7 years looking into that audience and I can tell you. They already agreed. They already voted. Already donated. Already cared. We weren't reaching the people who needed to hear it most. We were entertaining the people who already believed." Colbert's reply was quiet. "So we were preaching to the choir." Trevor shook his head. "No, we were the choir." The weight of the words sank between them. Two men staring at each other, both realizing the same possibility, that their life's work might have been aimed in the wrong direction. "But that doesn't mean it was worthless," Colbert said, his voice almost pleading. "Maybe reinforcement matters. Maybe people need to feel they're not alone in their values." "Maybe," Trevor admitted. Then his eyes hardened. "But is that worth dedicating your whole career to? Is validation enough for the platform, the influence, the responsibility? Because if that's all we're doing, Stephen," Trevor said, his voice low but cutting, then we're not journalists or activists or agents of change. We're just therapists with bigger audiences. The words stung. Colbert sank back into his chair, rubbing his hands through his hair. So what's the alternative? He asked, weary. What's the better way to use our voices? I don't. No, Trevor admitted. The raw honesty startled the room. That's why I left. Not because I had answers, but because I realized I'd been asking the wrong questions. Colbert leaned forward. And have you figured it out? Trevor thought for a long moment. I think I've found a more honest way, a way to engage, without pretending my voice is more important than it is. What does that even mean? Colbert pressed. It means admitting I'm just one voice among millions. That the real work happens in communities, schools, city halls, places without cameras. It means knowing I'm not the hero of the story. I'm just here to support the people who are. Colbert's eyes narrowed. And you think I'm not doing that? You think I'm trying to be the hero? Trevor gestured around the studio. I think you've convinced yourself this is the work. That being on TV every night is the same as being in the fight every day. That's not fair, Colbert said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe not, Trevor conceded, but it's honest. And maybe honesty is what's been missing. In this conversation, in all our conversations, maybe we've been so obsessed with being right that we forgot to be real. Oh. The two men locked eyes. Years of rivalry and tension laid bare. The studio was silent. You know what the tragedy is? Trevor said softly. We want the same things. We care about the same issues, the same values, the same kind of change. But instead of working together, we're tearing each other apart. Colbert exhaled slowly. Maybe that's the real flaw in this industry. It pits us against each other, forces us to compete for moral authority instead of collaborating for real change. Trevor nodded. Maybe the question isn't whether I was right to leave or you were right to stay. Maybe it's how we all do better, no matter the platform. For a moment, it felt like common ground. But then Colbert's expression hardened. That's a nice sentiment, Trevor. But it doesn't erase the fact that you abandoned your responsibility when people needed you most. You had millions watching, and you walked away. The words landed like a slap. Trevor's voice dropped. Dangerous now. Abandoned my responsibility. My responsibility is to speak authentically, not to perform the way you think I should. My responsibility is to live by my values, not make you comfortable. And your responsibility was to the communities you claim to represent, Colbert shot back. Trevor's voice shook with fury. Don't you dare. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibility to communities you've never been part of. Don't tell me about representation when you've spent your whole career speaking only for yourself. At least I stayed in the fight, Colbert repeated. Trevor's laugh was bitter. This isn't a fight, Stephen. This is theater. It's performance. Exactly what I meant when I said we've lost sight of what actually matters.